Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So as you all know, I recently took a road trip in fact, to go see my brother at the Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas, to watch him graduate from basic training from the United States Air Force. And it got me to thinking as far as preparation for the trip. The difference between a road trip versus a flight or an airplane trip. Kind of pros and cons of each. When I was growing up, we used to take road trips all the time, and there were only a few times where we actually took flights, and I started noticing that I preferred one over the other, and then I started thinking about the reasons as to why I preferred one over the other, and kind of the pros and cons started going back and forth in my head as far as which one I would prefer and why I honestly prefer that one. So let's go ahead and get into it. Shut up. Number one, there's definitely a lot more sightseeing that goes into road trips. Kind of stopping, take in everything. When you're stopping for gas, you can go into little shops, little boutiques to pick up little trinkets and memorabilia from your trip. So that's fun as far as, taking pictures and stuff like that. There's definitely a lot more sightseeing that goes into a road trip as far as, getting able to take in the scenery and everything like that, as opposed to flying over everything in the clouds when you're in the plane. Pro number 2 when you take a road trip: there aren't really any time constraints. You make up your own schedule. You can kind of come and go as you please. You can pull off, take a little nap, get a little rest. You can go to the bathroom whenever you please. You're not constricted to, the fasten seatbelt sign. You don't have to worry about that thing dinging. There's a lot more flexibility when you're in a road trip as opposed to, Number 3, and I think this is the biggest pro to traveling on a road trip: there are no packing restrictions. You don't have to worry about your bag being over a certain weight. You don't have to worry about packing full-size conditioner, full-size lotion. You don't have to worry about any of that, because nobody's going to throw your stuff away if it weighs too much or if it contains too much liquid or whatever. So that's definitely the most important pro. Number 4, you don't really have to worry about your transportation after you arrive at your destination. As opposed to sometimes, or a lot of times when we fly, we end up having to rent a car as well. That's an added expense. Whereas if you drive there, you already got your car, you already have your transportation, so you don't have to worry about getting back and forth between activities or whatever you're doing for. The last pro that I'm going to talk about is you have more room. When you're on an airplane, you're confined to this space. And there's really not much leg room sometimes. You can't really kick back and put your feet up or anything like that a lot of times, especially if you're sitting near strangers and trying to take a nap. You're just a lot more conscious about your space and about the people around you, as opposed to when you're in the car, you're usually with family or friends. You can kick your shoes off. You can, put your feet in the chair and just chill a little bit. You can stretch out, It's just better as far as, roomy, and you're not as conscious about the people around you. Number 1, there's more stopping and going. It definitely is a lot of, let's get out, let's stretch our legs, let's stop, and let's get gas. There's the pro to that side would be, there's a lot of sightseeing, but then the other side to that is, let's just go already, let's drive, let's get there. I want to get there, I want to get out of this car already. There's a lot of stop and go when you're on a road trip. Number 1 kind of bleeds into number 2. It's a lot more time consuming, like I said, as opposed to taking a 2-3 hour flight. You're in a car for hours and hours at a time, and you can get a little bit of cabin fever. You can get a little claustrophobic if you're in the same space for hours and hours on end, and you can't get out until you guys reach your destination. It's just very time consuming, and I'd rather just pop a sleeping pill, go to sleep, wake up 2 hours, and arrive at my destination. The third con would be that you are, in most cases, more than likely to overpack, because there are no packing restrictions. You don't have to worry about your bag being a certain size. So you throw in extra stuff that you really probably don't need. So you're more likely to overpack if you're on a road trip as opposed to a plane. Because on a plane, you're going to really focus on taking just what you need. And if you have extra room, then great. But if you don't, it doesn't matter. All you really need are the necessities. But when you're packing for a road trip, nobody's going to be charging you $50 or whatever if your bag is over a certain amount of, is over a certain weight. So you don't have to worry about that when you're on the road trip. Number 4, as far as a con for road trips, would definitely be paying for gas. You don't have to worry about that expense when you are flying to your destination. Gas can get pretty expensive, and it adds up. It definitely adds up, and in some cities it's more than others. So and you definitely want to think about that when you're getting a car or picking up a rental car. You want to think about the mileage. You want to think, how many times am I going to be stopping to have to fill up? But that definitely goes into context when you're thinking about a road trip, is divvying up the gas, setting aside money for gas, because that's an expense that you're going to have. The last con that I'm going to go over as far as road trips is definitely safety. Me being an African American woman, there are places, me being a woman period, there are places that you just don't want to venture into sometimes, especially at night when you're alone. Women traveling alone, it's just not as safe but I mean, if you're on an airplane, you're only in that space, for like 2 or 3 hours, and everybody's gone through security. Everybody's had to get checked and scanned and everything as far as weapons and everything go. You don't have to worry about pulling off into a shoddy gas station where you're more likely to be, racially profiled or attacked or, get hate speech or anything like that. Like, that's one of my biggest fears, and I fortunately have never ran into that. But safety is a big issue, and it's definitely something that goes into, my mind when I'm thinking about, as far as our route and where we can stop and where we can't. And hey, we need to get gas here because I don't see another nice gas station for miles. You got to hold off until we get to a well-lit area. That's just something that my mom put into me, not only as a woman, but as an African-American woman. You go to a well-lit area where there's a lot of people, and you get your gas and you go on about your way. But yeah, safety definitely goes into question when you're thinking about a road trip. Alright guys, that is my list of pros and cons versus road trips, as well as flying. I kind of went back and forth, but I really honestly and truly prefer to fly, even though it's more expensive in most cases as opposed to driving. It's just quicker, it's easier, and I'm lazy and I don't like being trapped in a car for hours and hours at a time. Let me know in the comments below which one you prefer, which one that you like better. And when was the last road trip you took? Who did you go with? And where did you go? If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give me a thumbs up. Go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And I have kind of created a little mini series as far as, traveling. So I will go ahead and link the other videos that I've completed below. And yeah, I think that's it. Thank you guys so much for watching. And as always, stay tuned.